Hello and welcome to the Meet the Parents podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Meet the Parents podcast. I'm your host Tim. You may know me from my blog, Slouching Towards Thatcham, or from my podcast of the same name, which this new show is a spin-off from. We'll be bringing you a unique mix every week of both mums and dads, chewing the fat over a variety of parenting-related topics. Real parents, real stories. The Meet the Parents podcast is your one-stop shop for parenting news and views from both a mum's and a dad's perspective. So on this week's first episode of the podcast, we're going to introduce the first few members of the podcast crew who are with me here tonight. We're going to talk about Valentine's Day, which is coming up shortly. I've got an interview with Louise from Little Hearts Big Love about what it's like to be a heart parent. And watch out for some other random goodies and equally random chat in between. So let's kick off by introducing the team behind tonight's podcast. Now, because my mind works that way, let's go round the table in alphabetical order. So let's start with Hannah.
Well, I'm Hannah, I'm 29 years old, mum to Toby who's 18 months old and pregnant with a baby girl due in April. I blog over at Budding Smiles and I've been doing that for just coming up 2 years now. I work from home as a freelance copywriter and I've been doing that ever since Toby was born really. Before that I worked for 10 years in special needs education.
Thanks, Hannah. So next, joining me on the male side of the fence tonight, we've got Julian. So Julian, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey up, Tim. I'm Julian. I work on Northern Dad blog, and I've got 2 kids. For privacy reasons, I'd like to call them Hall and Oates on here if we can. And if you imagine Hall is a 12-year-old boy and Oates is a 6-year-old girl, and I write predominantly about those 2, but I'm trying to broaden the appeal a little bit more now. So I'll write a little bit more about my wife. So, yeah, that's what I do.
And listeners of a certain age will probably have no idea who Julian's referring to. But Julian,
just think Hall is a boy, a 12-year-old boy. And you can't forget that, I don't think.
If you've ever followed either Julian or myself, you'll know that we often end up bantering about 80s music. So if you don't know who Hall and Oates are, feel free to look them up. So
I'd go back now to the 80s.
I never left the 80s. I'm still there. As far as I'm concerned, it's 1986.
That's when I was
it's
born.
the best, 86. I got my first job stacking shelves in Tesco at 86.
So last but by no means least, it's Vicky.
Hello Tim, hi. I'm Vicky and I blog as Verily Victoria Vocalises. I'm in my 40s. I'm not going to tell you which figure though. You can guess. And I have 2 children if you count my other half Ross. He's in his 30s. My other child is Grace and she's 9. And I'm a freelance marketing and content writer, and that's me.
And I said last but by no means least, but I appear to have forgotten myself. So just in case anyone doesn't know who I am, I'm Tim. Like Vicky, I am let's say over 21. I blog at Slouching Towards Thatcham. I work full time for a large US-based multinational corporation. Alan Sugar would hate me. I have 3 kids. Isaac, Toby and Cara, who are aged 8, 6 and 3.5. And we were also going to do one thing that they may not know about us. So I don't know if everyone's prepared to do that, but I'll kick off with myself. So one thing that you don't know about me, I used to write letters to magazines under the pseudonym Juanita Jones. now, get that mental image out of your head.
Is that your weekend name, Tim?
Yeah, well, every other weekend. and this is why we're not recording it as a video podcast. So shall we go back round the table again? So Hannah, one thing that people won't know about you.
Okay, people might not know that I was a goth in my teenage years.
Ooh.
Now for some of us, the teenage years is a lot further back than that. Julian?
Well, I got the sack from a Swiss roll factory for graffitiing inside the boxes. Yeah, I'm not proud of it.
What was the graffiti, Julie?
Yeah, you can imagine what it was. 86. It was night shift. Anything went really. So
Okay.
what I was doing was quite mild to what everybody else was doing, I think. So it was what anybody who was 16 would put in a Swiss roll box if they had a pen.
I know. I'll reference Hall and Oates. You're right. Private eyes are watching you in there, didn't you?
Well, I think we probably better swiftly move on to Vicky.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, I'm trying to think of something, but I once nearly got mown down by Prince Charles on his polo horse. There you go. It was by his ears, nearly. He nearly knocked me down by his. No, I'm joking.
And so that's a set of 4 mental images that nobody will hopefully be able to wipe from their memories.
Poor people.
And that's it. Let's start how we mean to go on, eh? Okay, so let's move on and talk about Valentine's Day. Now, hopefully this won't be news to anyone, and if it is, you can consider this a public service announcement, but it is Valentine's Day this Sunday, so let's talk flowers, chocolates and overpriced restaurants. So, does anyone have any big plans for the day that you'd like to make public here, bearing in mind that this is a family show?
I'll go first on that one, shall I? Actually, the day before Valentine's Day, we've got something planned, and it's thanks to POM, who are the pomegranate juice people. Somebody from Belle Assiette is coming to cook a brunch for us in our house. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's very posh food. I've seen the menu, and we're reviewing it for POM, who is actually sending me a load of juice to have with this breakfast. So we've got our own private chef, and the chef who's coming in has cooked for Bill Clinton, Maggie Thatcher and Sean Connery. So that's pretty exciting. So that's our plan, but we've actually been together 5 years on the 10th of February, so we tend to do something before Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day itself is just too commercialised for me.
Oh, that's very swish. If you have any leftovers, do feel free to send them on to me. How about you, Julian?
I can't do a restaurant meal. I can't do that anymore. Because, after 10 years, it's a bit much. And then you go through a bit of a boring phase, and now I've kicked into a sort of ironic phase. Where last year we did Strangers in a Bar. You have to pick a pseudonym or an alter ego. And my missus didn't like my alter ego at all. They did really clashed with her alter ego. I went sort of like as a talented biochemist, and she went Russian. We met in a bar, but of course you got to arrive separately. But she took the car, so I had to get the bus. But this year I'm going to do love rockets, it's just 2 rockets. They're really hard to buy out season of rockets, so you got to save them around sort of bonfire night. So you stash them somewhere, and then you sort of blindfold your other half, put her in the car, and then you drive out. We've all got like an old field or something we're quite familiar with. You add a bit of theatre to it, and then you take the blindfold off, and she's obviously going to look disappointed. And then you get your milk bottles out, and then you put your rockets in, and then you send your rockets off. One's you and one's her. And I know, it's kind of a nice sentiment, but it lasts not very long, and she looks really disappointed a lot of the time. She's going, "This is your favourite field. Why are we in a favourite field that it's dark? I don't want to know. Why have you got 2 milk bottles?" Because it might look like the opening scene of a Luther episode, and then you go from that to joy to let's go home. But I'm going to try it.
It's quite romantic, actually. I think that's quite romantic.
It's got a quite romantic point to it, but it's not a very long point. And then you just go.
This sounds like the sort of thing that might escalate over a number of years, so that 5-10 years down the line, you start to need nuclear launch codes.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try it. I'll let you know what happens, Tim. I don't want you to try it without me going first.
Yeah, well, we'll keep listening out for news reports of a crater that suddenly appeared. So Strangers in the Bar is a bit like Phil and Claire Dunphy in Modern Family, isn't it?
Exactly. I saw that and I thought, well, let's try and do that. Well, see if it is a fictional thing or whether people do it and how far you can actually take it forward. And then I just wrote that up as it was. And it's such a nice thing to do when you write it up, because it's a really nice thing to frame. So you can play around with it a lot if you're doing a story out of it.
And if it works, you've got a ready-made sitcom pilot.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what I'm trying to do. So that was perfect for me doing that. So
two birds, one stone. Excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
So how about you, Hannah?
I definitely cannot top Love Rockets or Strangers in a Bar. We are literally going to go for a Sunday carvery lunch with Toby, and I'll probably be in bed by 8 o'clock as usual with a very heavy bump, ready to fall asleep.
Yeah, and my wife and I now have been together, God, how many years is it? 20, it'll be 25 years this year.
Wow.
So I'll be doing my usual and getting flowers from the petrol station, and then you probably won't hear from me for the next 2 weeks. So I guess, do you guys worry about how it feels to me that Valentine's Day has become really rampantly commercial, particularly over the last, I guess, 10, 15 years? Does that change the way you approach it?
I think it has. When I first started dating when I was younger, much younger, Valentine's Day wasn't commercialised like it is now. And when we went out for meals, it wouldn't feel like that, there was a rigid set 2 people per table along a row, and the restaurant was doing it in sittings and charging you a set price, which was always a lot of money. And what really annoys me more than anything else, and this is where I start getting on my soapbox, is the fact that they've involved children in this. To me, Valentine's Day is about a couple, a romantic love between 2 people, not about starting to give your kids a whole load of bump, chocolates and all the rest of it. And it makes me annoyed, actually, because I think they're just cashing in on that situation as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm 30 this year, so pretty much my entire sort of teenage and into adulthood, it's always been commercialised in my experience. And as a schoolgirl that wasn't very popular, I was the goofy, geeky one that got bullied a lot. So the fact that a lot of the other kids, young teenagers and mid-teens in my class, they were, maybe going out on dates or giving each other Valentine's Day cards and stuff like that. And through those formative years where you're really, really struggling to figure out who you are, that just kind of exacerbated it to me that I was very attractive and wasn't worthy of attention. You don't need to be thinking about that stuff really when you're sort of 13, 14. So I do agree with you there, Vicky.
Yeah, I mean, I used to always think, well, the standard thing is you go out for a meal and then you have sex. That's the standard, right? But I'm always sort of bloated after a meal.
No.
I need a little run-up. So I always found it a little bit contrary to my aims, really. So now what I do is, rather than having the sex looming over me, that this is going to happen later on, I get that out of the way quite early now, and then I go for the food after. So that's how I look at it now. I sort of work it around my digestive system. And so I've completely turned it on its head and do everything the other way around now.
Yeah, I think you guys have kind of said it all about how commercial Valentine's Day has become. And I object to the whole restaurant thing of the regimented sittings and paying twice the price for food that's half as good as what you'd normally get, and actually just the way you're made to feel guilty now if you don't shower your other half with massive material gifts. It's like it has become amazingly commercial, and it feels like it's done that in the space of 10, 15, 20 years. Certainly it's completely different to how it was when Heather and I started going out together. So there you go, that's the Meet the Parents Guide to Valentine's Day. And now a message from our sponsors. Children out of control? Is it wine o'clock yet? Then why not try out Wine Goggles? Wine Goggles improve the performance of even the most mediocre supermarket Chardonnay or Merlot. Wear them while you drink and make everything look that little bit better. Available from all good opticians and some bad ones too. Warning, This product may not improve your eyesight. Not recommended as part of a calorie-controlled diet. Do not operate heavy machinery while wearing wine goggles. If you've listened to the Slouching Towards Thatcham podcast, you'll know that every week I featured a fellow parent blogger who talked about and read one of their favourite posts. Now, we're going to continue doing that as much as we can in this podcast, so here's a chat I had recently with midwife and heart parent Louise from the blog Little Hearts Big Love. I talked to Louise about her blog, her family, and the reality of being the parent of a child with congenital heart defect. It's a topic that's particularly relevant right now because February is the British Heart Foundation's National Heart Month, while February the 14th, as well as being Valentine's Day, as we've just discussed, is also Congenital Heart Defect Awareness Day. Hi there, Louise.
Hi, Tim.
So, to start with, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a full-time mummy. I've got two little girls. I've got Jessica, who's 4, and she has a congenital heart defect, and Sophie, who's 2, and she's heart healthy. So I blog a lot about life as a heart family and living with congenital heart disease.
Yeah, and your blog revolves a lot around family life with both your girls, doesn't it? So
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit, I guess, about your younger daughter, Sophie?
Sophie is 2. She's full of beans. She's full of mischief. She's a little bundle of joy generally. She's just a happy little girl, into everything. As they are at 2.
And Jessica, of course, is your special little warrior who literally at the heart of much of your writing. So tell us a little bit more about her.
Jessica is, she has what's called hyperplastic left heart syndrome, which basically means that she lives life with half a working heart. We found out about it when I was 20 weeks pregnant at the scan, and she actually had her first surgery when I was 28 weeks pregnant, so still in the womb. But at the time, we were told that she pretty much had virtually no chance of surviving after birth, and that was really what gave us hope and gave her a little bit of a chance after birth.
That's great. So the post you're going to read for us today relates to Jessica, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So I'll just hand it straight over to you to read. So this is Louise reading What It Means to Be a Heart Parent.
It took just 7 words to change my entire life. 7 words which broke my heart, shattered my dreams, and turned my world upside down. 7 words from which I emerged a stronger and more compassionate person. There's something wrong with the baby's heart. In that moment, I felt fear colder and stronger than any I'd ever known before. In that moment, I knew I would do anything I could to save my child's life. In that moment, although I could barely grasp it, I became a heart parent. I learned to hold on to hope and faith when there was nothing else left to do. I learned to live in the moment and find joy in the darkest of times. I learned to put my trust in the skilled hands of those who were caring for my child. There were many moments when all I wanted to do was run and hide, to pretend this wasn't happening. There were many moments when the fear of the future felt overwhelming. There were many moments when it seemed the only thing that kept me going was hope and the love, support and prayers of those around me. This is what it means to be a heart parent. I have looked at the huge hands of a surgeon and marvelled that they can perform such intricate surgery on something the size of a walnut. I have sung my child to sleep in the anaesthetic room of an operating theatre. I have handed my child to a surgeon, knowing they will stop my child's heart, and prayed that I will see my child alive again. I have spent hours pacing the corridors of a hospital whilst my child undergoes life-saving surgery. I have spent hours sitting in intensive care listening to the endless beep of machines. I have spent hours holding my child in my arms, thrilling at the joy of being able to do so. I have learned that miracles can and do happen. There are many moments when my feelings as a parent seem to be amplified. Anxiety whenever my child is unwell. Guilt on those challenging parenting days that come to us all. Those moments when bedtime feels it can't come soon enough, and I feel guilty for not enjoying the moments that I know I am so blessed to experience. Joy and pride in all the little milestones that suddenly become extra special because of the journey it has taken to achieve them. The road has been rocky at times, and there are many dark moments still ahead. I do not know what the future holds, and I do not dare to try and look ahead. This is a road I would never have willingly chosen to walk, and yet I know I would walk it all over again for the joy and blessing of having my child with me. I have discovered a faith that has helped me to endure throughout the dark moments. I have discovered a strength that I never knew I possessed. I have discovered a love stronger than anything this journey can throw at us. This is my life. This is our journey as a family. This is what it means to be a heart parent.
Thanks, Louise. This is such a beautiful and emotional post, and one that's clearly resonated with a lot of other people, whether they're fellow heart parents or not. And I think it's always great when I read about what Jessica and her sister are getting up to, and they always look so close as sisters in your photos.
They are very close. Yeah, they're lovely. They've got such a lovely bond between them.
So, Louise, thanks so much for taking the time to join me on this week's podcast.
Thank you, Tim.
So before we shut up shop, what's been happening with each of us over the past week or so? So is there anything else that anyone's done or read, laughed at or cried over the past week that you'd like to share with our literally some listeners? So Hannah, what's been happening with yourself now that we're into the third trimester?
Yes, I was going to say that's my big thing this week. Is I got into the third and final trimester of my pregnancy with baby girl, and I've been absolutely exhausted most of the week. I've written a blog post about raising a high-need child on the back of being absolutely exhausted day and night through some of Toby's behaviours, and that's had a good response. And baby girl's wriggling around and kicking me frequently, which is really lovely. And that's about it, really.
Have you found that this pregnancy has been very different from Toby's?
Completely. I pretty much breezed through Toby's, and this has been a lot harder. But then I've got an 18-month-old to run around after, which I didn't have last time around. So yes, I think that's probably had a large part to play.
Oh yes, I remember what that's like, and I think with our three, the first and the third were relatively easy, and the second one was much more difficult. So yeah, no, I can sympathise with what you're going through at the moment. Julian, other than planning the launch of rockets, what have you been up to?
Well, we own a cafe, Tim, and I've had to build what the wife's called a peasant shield, which is at the moment you can get behind the counter if you want. So like Trump wants to build that wall to keep out the Mexicans. She wants me to build this extra thing over the counter to stop people nicking straws and serviettes. So I've had to build that this week. So it's got to be at a certain height that she can see people coming in so that they're not robbing us, but not so they can see her. Which has involved me building it and then having her stand behind it, then going on her tiptoes and going, yeah, hang on, let me have a look at it from over here. Yeah, you come in and pretend you're robbing. So I've had to do all that.
That's proper manly stuff.
It is really manly, yeah. So I'm building that. It's like it's sort of it's about 5'8", and there's no way you're going to be able to get more serviettes than we want you to have.
How about yourself, Vicky?
In complete contrast to Hannah, weekly at the moment I'm doing a vlog about conception diaries, and Ross and I have been trying for a baby now for over 2.5 years, and this last week we've made a decision to go for egg donation, and that's probably going to be at the end of February now, that we'll be travelling to Cyprus, and we've just got the medical protocol through together with a list of donors, and we've selected a donor, and we have also found out that I'm going to need an injection every day for the next 12 weeks, which I am absolutely bricking myself over, to be perfectly frank. When I found out, I cried for half an hour, and then Ross said to me, "You sure you still want to do this?" several times, but as they say, no pain, no gain, and the want of wanting a baby is actually outweighing the fear of injection, so it obviously proves that we definitely want it.
Yeah, I'd much rather stick away from the needles. Better you than me on that one. Yeah. But no, we had friends who went through something similar, so best of luck with that, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about some good news at some point in the future.
I hope so. And also, can I just say, Ross said to help me with my injections, he was going to take me by surprise and just come up behind me and do them. And I was like, if you do that, I'm going to punch you in the face. I wasn't pleased about that.
That's great. Just relax while I surprise you by attacking you with a deadly weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just make my phobia worse, why don't you?
Oh dear. And what have I been up to? I've just come back from a weekend in Cambridge, meeting up with a group of fellow bloggers. So instead of doing what we normally do, which is to write comments at each other on each other's blogs and on Twitter, we've been sitting around a dinner table, writing tweets to each other and posting photos of each other on Instagram. As you can
only in Bloggerland can you do that.
Yeah, and a tip for any non-bloggers out there, you can always spot a table of bloggers on a night out because they're the ones who are constantly glued to their phones.
So true.
So true.
And that's it for the first episode of the Meet the Parents podcast. We'll be back next week, but in the meantime, if you just can't wait a full 7 days to get some more of us, here's where you can find each of us online. So, Hannah?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Budding Smiles, and my blog is buddingsmiles.co.uk.
And Julian, where can people find you?
I think it's Northern Dad WordPress, and then at Northern Dad blog on Twitter, I think.
It's always helpful when you know your own email address, isn't it? Your own blog address, even. And finally, Vicky.
I'm over on Twitter as Vic Welton, VICWELTON, and my blog, Verily Victoria Vocalizes, has a shortened URL, which is VEVIVOS.com.
And finally, I'm Tim, so I'm at Thatcham Dad, and my blog is slouchingtowards.thatcham.com. So I'll attach links to all of the above, plus Louisa's links in the show notes over on meettheparentspodcast.com, our brand new website. So you can download this podcast from wherever it is you happen to find us, which includes iTunes, our website at meettheparentspodcast.com, YouTube, and a variety of podcasting apps. So, and do please follow us on Twitter at Parents Podcast and on Facebook at facebook.com/Meet the Parents Podcast. So on behalf of the entire team, thanks for listening to this first edition of the Meet the Parents Podcast, and we hope you'll be back for more of the same next week. Good night.